Got a 2006 Hyundai Tiburon that needs some work done on it because it has seen better days. And today I'm going to be working on the exhaust. As you can see under there, it's got a broken flex pipe. Actually, let's change angles here so it can be seen better. See right there? Broken. And the goal is to cut that part out, replace it with a new flex pipe that I weld in. I will be welding it in with a fairly standard flux welder that I got for cheap. I figured it'd be the easiest, cheapest solution because the whole replacement part for that piece is 400 bucks. Meanwhile, I'm saving about 150 by doing it myself. At least that's the goal. Right now I have it pulled into my garage. I just had it cooled down with a fan pointed towards the exhaust, so now it's touchable. I'm hoping that I can get away with not having to buy too many more parts, as I need to remove these two bolts here. So you can see this gasket here is all rusted, so I'll probably need to buy another one. But as long as I can remove these bolts without breaking anything, then I'll be happy. The other side, there's some bolts behind the second stage catalytic converter, just in front of, actually really just behind the second stage catalytic, in front of the resonator. So let's go back there, take a look. As you can see, there they are. I'm hoping I can also remove those. However, everything is rusted to hell. I also really hope that I can get away with just cutting out that old flex pipe and welding in a new one in situ without having to try to remove anything. That would be ideal. However, I am not sure. Time to get started. Before getting started, actually, I want to take a before and after just to see how it sounds. I've already installed a push to start system here on my car. You may be asking why, and it's because the immobilizer wasn't working. Fairly loud. You can see these are some of the other issues that this car has. The airbag, I'm fairly certain that's the clock spring. Check engine light is from the exhaust, and then ABS, I believe, is the rear right sensor that's gone bad. That's left to be seen though. I've done a whole bunch of other work on this car already. There's still things to be done. So, ran into an issue. This bolt and the other bolt do not want to come out. I've tried by hand. I sadly don't have an impact driver on me. So, what I'm planning on doing is cutting this bolt somewhere right around here. Hopefully not too much into the metal. And then I can pull this part out and hopefully take care of this piece here. Take care of this whole piece here. I will need a new gasket. That'll be kind of hard to find. Well, not super hard to find, but getting this remainder part out will be difficult. As you can see, this bolt actually compresses the gasket in the middle by the threads here. There are no threads on this part. That's also why there's no bolt or no nut here, because this is the only part that's threaded. So that's what makes it convenient to just cut this off to be able to get this whole part off. However, that makes it difficult because I still have to remove this. And how I can remove this, I still have no clue. And once I do get the part off. Now once I get the whole part off, the flex pipe, I could just cut here. Really, yeah, mostly just cut here, put in a new one. And then on this other end, also gonna try to cut around it. This is a fix that I tried earlier. I knew it wasn't gonna last. It was just to see if this was the only section that was leaking, and it was. This is a glass-filled epoxy, and then this is what you might call an exhaust patch. I'd used the glass-filled epoxy to adhere it, and then the exhaust patch went around there just to hold it in place. This lasted for about a week, which is really more than I expected. I expected only to last a few days. Once I get this part out, clean this up, not this side, but the other side, this part here, clean that up, remove the O2 sensor, and then I can start kind of grinding away at here. Okay, so slight change of plans. So this right here is the Flexpipe that I bought as a replacement. As you can see, it fits in the same zone. So what I'm thinking is I take an angle grinder, cut here, basically just this flex portion will be cut out, and it'll leave behind these two flanges. Now inside the flanges, as you can see, there is metal. So what I'm thinking is once this part is out, I can just insert this new flex pipe into there and here, and then just weld this to the remaining metal that's in there. It'll be a little bit sketch, and it'll be a little bit difficult, especially to get to the top with the welder. But I think that on the top I can just tack weld my way around up until I get to this point where I can then fully weld it. Now the only issue is that I don't have the stay bracket for this exhaust. And the car just didn't have it when I bought it. And it's supposed to come bolted here, and it's basically just a piece of metal that holds this up somewhat. Now I will try to get it into the right position. Now the weld will preload. That will kind of preload the weld when it sags back down, but gotta do what you gotta do. So actually, before getting started, I want to make sure that everything that I have actually manages to fit in here. So here's the welder. So as you can see, it does have enough space here to work. It'll take quite a little bit of finagling, but it'll work. Here won't be as big of an issue, but this should work. Now the other issue is the angle grinder. The angle grinder will fit. It'll cause a lot of metal debris, but it will fit. And then getting it here will be fine. Then getting it over here will be pretty sketch. So what I'm going to try to do is try to keep it at this angle so that I can just cut straight across. And then once enough of it is broken, I'll try to break off what I can from this flex pipe, and then the rest kind of just work my way in. We'll see how that goes. But I think this will work. It seems that everything fits. I have enough room. Just got to make sure to take off that O2 sensor first before I actually do anything. Hi, so this is the voiceover portion of the video because I figured this would be better to hear than the angle grinder. Now, this section was actually reversed. I decided to cut vertically through the flex pipe because I couldn't get all the way across with just angle grinder. I'd have to cut a huge wedge of the flex pipe off anyway. So I figured, well, might as well just cut down and then try to just not try to hit the metal of the oil pan. Now what you see below the angle grinder is actually just a water bath. That's my attempt at collecting as much of the dust particles that come from the angle grinding. And yes, some metal did get inside the exhaust pipes, but I was able to extract quite a good bit of it with just vacuum. And it really wasn't all that difficult to do this part. It took time just because I had to be delicate in not cutting any other metal that wasn't the flex pipe. But honestly, fairly easy process. Alright, back to the audio. Okay, so the angle grinder worked on getting the outer wire shell cut pretty well. I left a lot of shavings here. Well, really just steel wire. But I cleaned up my area. Make sure to always clean up your work area. You know what they say. Because I sure hope you know what they say, because I don't. But anyway, I'm almost got this cut all the way through. This is already pretty fragile. It's a little hot also. But hoping that I can kind of just bend everything out of the way slowly. Or maybe even cut portions so that I can finish cutting it here. I could potentially cut here a little bit, but I don't think it's 100% necessary. So I think I'll continue as is for now with just trying to cut here. And trying to remove this slowly, piece by piece. I've already got it pretty well cut there. Cutting the inner portion seems like I'm just missing a little bit of the inner portion right here. And then I should be able to take off this other shell. And then the inner rod, or the inner wire shell. And then that'll just leave whatever's there to remove. Okay, so I managed to remove most of it by plying it out, pretty much, as you can see. I had to actually use tin snips right there to really ply it out. They were fairly dull, so they didn't really cut all the way. And this new Flexpipe actually just barely manages to fit in there. So what I'm thinking I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut it a little bit. Not too much, but cut it just a little bit on either side so that I can maybe just jam it in there and then weld it. Still gotta clean this bit up a bit, but once that's ready, I should just be able to put the pieces in. Bam, done. Okay, so as you can see, I got the Flexpipe in. Sorry about the finger. So it does fit in both. The problem is, because this pipe isn't exactly firm in place, I'm gonna need some help to weld it into place. Now I'm no welder, so I'm gonna do a few trial welds with what I got first, and then I'll figure out exactly where I need this to be. I'll have someone help hold it for me. But you can see it sags quite a bit. I'm gonna have to hold it up just a little bit, and then I'll see if I can maybe get some sort of bracket, temporary bracket to hold it in while I do this. But it's almost done, so just some setup, then should be good. Alright, took me a minute, but finally got it all situated and cleaned. All the particles that got in here and over here cleaned out with vacuum and a brush. I went ahead and grinded this surface a little bit, as well as this one with a steel wire brush. So we have some metal exposed there. And I finished up the settings for the weld after practicing a little bit because it's been a while. My formal education in mechanical engineering only had me do a little bit of welding, so I wasn't too accustomed to it. But I think I'll be good. Just gonna take it slow, make sure I'm all good. Well, I'm gonna have to anyway. The duty cycle for the welder I bought is 3 minutes hot, 7 minutes cold, so it'll take a while for me to get all of this done. But I'll be back when it's done. Well, it looks like absolute hell, but it's getting there. As I said, I'm not a great welder. You can see it kind of started doing well there, but then I started backing out instead of staying along the rim. But I was able to go back and put in a little bit more material to get a better weld in there. I'll probably end up going back over all of this with a lot more, just to make sure that this is properly mounted to this. Because what I worry is that this weld here won't hold for long, especially with my quality of the weld. But I'm not even sure, actually. Yeah, I'm not even sure if I'm getting supreme contact with the metal all around. But we'll see. We'll see once I start driving around with it. I'm almost done with this half. Then I'll put in a couple tacks here, remove this, and finish up. Welding is done. It looks like absolute shit, but it's a shit box anyway, so good enough. I also welded in this bar here, this bracket, well, whatever you want to call it. Ooh, it's still very hot. It's stainless steel. I don't think the welder did a very good job of welding it in there, but you know what? I don't think it needs that much support anyway, because I welded this as best as I could. We'll see how long it lasts. I don't expect it to last very long, but I also don't need it to last longer than 2 years. It should last me that long, at least. I don't know. We'll find out once it's done. But it looks mediocre at best. I wish I had more space under here. Definitely having a lift or a lot more space down here would have helped me a lot, because I just didn't have the angles I needed. I had to do a lot of finagling. I started this around 1 p.m. and it is now 5:30. That is how long it took me. Crazy. But once I get out from under here, put the car down, I'll turn it on. Alright, got the car on the floor now. Let's hear it. Much better. Much better. Doesn't sound as good as I was hoping, but it definitely sounds much better. So for reference, every time I would pull out, Not only did it sound like a jet engine trying to take off, but it also sounded incredibly loud whenever I accelerated. Oh my god, that sounds so good. Holy moly, I can hear myself think now. Oh shit. Got stuff in the back of my car. We turn around and take it off. Oh well, test drive complete. Okay, it is 1 week after the whole Flexpipe exhaust welding. It is holding strong. I don't see any problems with it so far. It is time for an oil change for this bad boy. I'm going to be putting in liquid moly gen. The reason being, I know it's a bit of an expensive oil, is because this car is either leaking or burning oil, and I can't tell which it is. Because this car, the engine bay is just so dirty, I just can't make out where it may be leaking oil. I think it might be leaking oil from the valve right there, but I'm not sure if that's actually leaking oil, if it's where I spilled oil. So I'm going to clean this engine bay, and then before doing the oil change, I'll make sure it's all clean down below so I can spot where any oil may be leaking out. Gotta make sure to dry it out real good as well, because I don't need anything else rusting. So that's first step, cleaning it up. Right, so I didn't explain why Molygen specifically. Molygen is green. So with the engine bay mostly cleaned out now, you can see I gave it a spray down with simple green and a whole bunch of water. Of course, I took out the battery first. Didn't want that shorting anything. But Molygen is green, excessively green, and it's even fluorescent. So with a UV light, I can easily tell where it might be leaking out from. Again, I think it might be here from the head gasket. I'm not sure. I'm hoping it's just the head gasket and not the crankshaft, the crank seal. And while I did do the Flexpipe fix, it still has the check engine light, and I think it might be that this port for this O2 sensor might be dirty. So while I'm down there cleaning the oil, after I get all the oil out, I'm going to, well, bring the car into the garage, take the battery out again, mount it up, go under, start pouring the oil, and while it's pouring, I'm going to remove the oil sensor again, and this time from the connector up here as well. And with the connector gone, I'm going to spray some vinegar inside it to hopefully clean up the contact port and the contacts for it. They should be copper contacts. We'll see. But the vinegar, what it will do is it will dissolve the copper oxide that has potentially built up in there. And I'll also go ahead and do that for this front sensor as well. There's the connector. It goes into the stage 1 catalytic converter. I'll most likely do it for both of them at the same time, just because it's simple enough thing to do. And well, with the battery gone, hopefully that check engine light does not turn on again. If it does, well, then I've got other issues to figure out then. So before I even change the oil, I think I may have found the issue. If you turn on my flashlight here, so you can see here, if it'll focus, that this looks pretty fresh. Not fresh, but it still looks pretty wet. And you can see from underneath also that it does look still wet. If you check out all the other grime grease around the car, it looks fairly dry. So I think this problem might actually be that crankshaft seal, that crank seal there, or it might just be the fact that whatever previous owner did work on this car to replace the gasket didn't do a good enough job with the RTV. The problem is, to replace the RTV around the whole oil pan, I'm not sure if I can do this very easily, because the problem is, so to remove the whole pan, I need to remove bolts here, and then on the other side of the exhaust, so that one, those two there, and then those two on the other side, as well as more bolts on the back side. Hold on, the oil's still draining. I don't want to get oil on my phone here. You see all of that? Which means that to be able to drop this pan, I actually need to get this exhaust line off, because I don't think I can pull it out through this panel. No, there's no way. You can see the frame, the subframe arm there. is in the way, so I wouldn't be able to. So I would have to remove this exhaust. Oh boy, what a fucking headache. Maybe I could just slide it back. But realistically, yeah, maybe I could just slide it back. Slide it back enough over to where the O2 sensor is. See where that is? Slide it back over to where the O2 sensor is, maybe. Just get it out of the way so I can clean it up, put new RTV. That might be what I might be able to do. I can maybe get away with doing that, but there's more to investigate there. What a pain! What a pain! If it's a crank seal, that's generally even worse. Genuinely. Oh boy. But what can you do? I really hope it's not that crank seal. I don't think it is. But that's the only thing I can imagine without being able to get a better view. Maybe not. Maybe it's not the crank seal. It might just... I don't know. I don't know. It's really hard to say. Well, get the oil changed up on this one. Call it a day. This is what Molly Gen looks like. For those of you who don't know, it is green. Let me see if I can tilt this without absolutely... There it is. And as I said earlier, this does fluoresce. Before starting the car and pulling it out, I will go ahead and clean up the area down there with the oil pan. Probably should have done that first before pouring in more oil, but no matter. Car does only take 4 liters. But I will hold on to that other liter. Normally I would just scrap it, but with how costly the stuff is and the fact that I am losing oil in the car for whatever reason, I'm going to keep it as spare. So now that oil is done, time to do the whole sensor thing. So I got my vinegar here. This is 1 part vinegar to about 1 part water. It doesn't have to be super exact. And I got a brush. Just gonna spray some in there, brushy, leave it in there for about 5 minutes. Grab some water, rinse it out, let it dry before I pull the car out. That's all there is to it. Hi, time for another voiceover section. So this is me turning on the car after doing the oil change and the O2 port cleaning. I thought the O2 port cleaning would work, but it actually didn't. The engine light just turned off because I had disconnected the battery earlier when I cleaned the engine bay. It still persists, but from what I found both in the workshop manual and from the online Tiburon forum, it's simply just the iron gaskets or the gaskets that go in the exhaust system. As they age and flake out, they create these little pockets where air can kind of feed in or exhaust gases can leak out. And that's why that check engine light is there. So really this was all unnecessary work. And it feels to be operating much better. I'm not shaking it nearly as much. So the squeaking that you heard earlier, I believe the power steering pump needs either some work on it or one of these pulleys might need something too. And I believe the valves are also out of clearance, or approaching out of clearance, because you can kind of hear them going. But otherwise, car's good. Okay, so I'm back here with my Tiburon. It's been some time after my last oil change, and I wanted to save this for this video. Let me see, it's been about 3 weeks since the oil change, and that should have been enough time for some oil to leak out. I haven't checked the oil level right now, since the car is actually on a slope. It's not the best. But I have the UV light here. Now what we're looking for is green. And you're going to love to see this. See that color? That's kind of what we're looking for here. Now, I don't see any immediate signs of an oil leak here. There's something going on there. Seems like there may have been an oil leak at some point here. But let's go underneath the car. See if we can spot anything here. Nothing immediately obvious. Might be best to lift up the car at this point. Let me stop the video and I'll come back once I actually find some evidence. So I did find something. So if you look here at the oil pan, you'll see that it is somewhat green. I'll move this out of that direct way. So you will see that it is somewhat green. It's very hard to tell, but trust me, it's very green in real life. I'm going to pass my finger on it, and it did rub off. So I do think that that's where there was some oil leakage. Sadly, the UV is messing with the camera, so it doesn't look immediately great. However, there's definitely some evidence of oil leaking, especially because I cleaned this area here. Oh, that's much better. I cleaned this area here. You can see that it does look somewhat wet again. So I do think there is an oil leak. That spot right there is what I rubbed with my finger. It does appear to be an oil leak right here at the oil pan somewhere. Sadly, I can't get under it right now. But it's a sign that there's something here. There's definitely some oil leak happening around this part here, which is very annoying, but I'll have to wait until next time. Some plastic bits inside the cockpit have broken, so that'll be a part of the next video. And potentially some other things. I have a plan to replace some parts in the rear suspension, so hopefully I can get to that in the next video. But until then, this is all I have. If there's any part that you'd like to see me on how I replaced it or how I managed to replace it, if you're having difficulty, let me know and I'll definitely record it.